Reminiscent of the way that I play RPGs, I decided to adapt a Pingers style deck into a generic Spellcaster themed tap-untap shenanigans deck.
Forests, islands, mountains, plains, and swamps. The multiverse is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. There is a tingling in the spine, a faint sensation, as if a distant memory of walking from plane to plane. Our lives have been forever changed, as if by magic. Embark with me on this journey to eternity. Experience the true power of mind over matter as we ignite your spark and traverse into the magic multiverse.
There are a few commanders or combinations of partner commanders that could work for this deck. I decided to choose Thrasios, Triton Hero, and Crown Ludovic's Opus, one for value and one for Smashing Face. There are two main combo lines in this deck. The first being through the Illusionist Bracers equipment, and one of our creatures that taps to untap something.
This deck reins in a unique combo that exploits some older card decks. Cards like Seeker of Skybreak that can tap to untap target creature can technically target themselves. Normally this would result in nothing happening, so Wizards didn't feel the need to include such unnecessary restrictions. However, using the more modern equipment Illusionist Bracers, the activated ability can be copied, targeting itself plus one other creature. This allows you to infinitely untap any number of target creatures. This can be useful in so many ways when you add it, such as Kiora's Follower, untapping any permanent. This will allow you to generate infinite mana by untapping lands, or even infinite damage by untapping the universally adored Prodigal Sorcerer.
This can also be mimicked by having two creatures that can untap, quote, another target creature, or something, and equipping the one that can have multiple types of targets and using them to untap each other, while the copied ability generates infinite value of some sort. The other combo in this deck produces infinite untaps by utilizing a creature that can tap for 4 or more mana and the Umbral Mantle equipment. Umbral Mantle goes infinite with this type of setup, generating infinite mana, and then allowing us to utilize that mana to move Umbral Mantle around and untap any other creatures as we see fit. The ramp package in this deck is designed to be a bit eclectic. Starting us off, we have a Talisman of Curiosity and a Talisman of Creativity. Each of these costs 2 and taps for 1 generic mana. They can also tap for colored mana and deal a damage to us each time they do. Arcane Signet is going to cost us 2 and tap for any of our commander's colors. Birds of Paradise is a 0/2 flyer that taps for a mana of any color. Sakura Tribe Scout costs a green and will tap to put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. Zertal Druid costs red-green and taps to add a green mana to our mana pool and deal 1 damage to each of our opponents. Parcel Beast is a newer creature, utilizing the mutate mechanic. Mainly, we will run it for the tap ability, pay 1 and tap, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. This is reminiscent of Thrasios' activated ability. Rampant Growth lets us fetch a basic land onto the battlefield tapped for 1 and a green. Harvest Season costs 2 and a green and will let us fetch a basic land to the battlefield tapped for each tapped creature that we control. Voyaging Satyr will allow us to repeatedly untap target land for only 1 and a green. Crowsand Restorer will do the same, and if we have Threshold, it will untap up to 3 target lands instead. Argothian Elder will tap to untap up to 2 target lands. Dawn's Reflection and Market Festival each cost 3 and a green to enchant a land. The enchanted land produces an extra 2 mana in any combination of colors when it is tapped for mana. This will help us create some juicy lands for untapping. Now that we have discovered the druids of this deck, let's take a look at the sorcery section. Prodigal Pyromancer is the inspiration for the Death by 1,000 Cuts win con. This classic card costs 2 and a blue for a 1/1 creature that taps to deal 1 damage to any target. With this guy out on the battlefield during one of our infinite untap combos, we will scorch our opponents with massive amounts of damage. Zoran Spellcaster is a functional reprint. Prodigal Pyromancer is the same for just 1 and a red. Frostwielder costs 2 red for another of the same type of creature. However, it will exile any creatures that its damage kills. Razorfin Hunter is a merfolk pinger for a red and a blue. Cunning Sparkmage is a hasty pinger, and Thermo Alchemist will ping each opponent and untap whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell. Not everyone was born to be a great sorcerer. Let's take a look at some magical enhancements we can use to improve upon some other creatures' flawed designs. Viridian Longbow will turn any creature into a pinger so long as they are able to equip it. Hermetic Study will unlock some deeply suppressed psychic powers, turning one of our creatures into, you guessed it, a pinger. Maybe our creatures could unlock a psionic gift as well, or find a fire whip, or better yet, a Quicksilver Dagger. Quicksilver Dagger will even let us draw a card each time that we activate the ability. Of course, these occult firebolts will demolish our enemies, but they could do even more. Curiosity killed the, what was it again? Our chances of losing, if you ask me. Curiosity costs a blue and allows us to draw a card each time the enchanted creature deals damage. The important part here is that this is not restricted to commander damage or combat damage. This can let our pingers draw us cards as well. Keen Sense will give us the same effect, but for a green mana instead of a blue mana. Tandem Lookout has Soul Bond, and when bound, grants the Curiosity ability to itself as well as the bonded creature. This will allow us to bond him to one of our pinger creatures, and then enchant the Tandem Lookout with one of our pinger enchantments, or give him the Viridian Longbow. Ophidian Eye is another Curiosity for 2 and a blue. Snake Umbra is basically another Ophidian Eye, except it costs 2 and a green, and it also has the Totem Armor effect. If the enchanted creature would die, you may sacrifice the aura instead of having the creature die. Damage and card draw seem pretty covered. So let's take a look of the other types of value that we can generate from our pinger's damage. Sigil of Sleep will allow us to bounce our opponent's beefy creatures, or be political with their ETB creatures. Charisma will allow us to take control of our opponent's creatures by damaging them. Willbreaker is an all-star of this deck, allowing all of our targeting abilities to steal the creatures they target until we lose control of Willbreaker. Death Touch is an extra deadly effect with direct damage. We can spread the decay by using Basilisk Collar, Gorgon's Head, Gorgon's Flail, or a Nightshade Peddler. Dismiss into Dream has a similar effect, allowing us to force our opponents to sacrifice the permanents that we target. Azami, Lady of Scrolls, lets us tap our untapped wizards to draw a card, ignoring Summoning Sickness. Mercurial Chemister is mostly here for its first ability, to pay a blue and tap it to draw 2 cards. Fauna Shaman lets us trade our unwanted or redundant creature cards for whichever creature would launch us into the lead. Disruptive Student was mostly a flavor add for me, but it became a deterrent for people to spend all of their mana, dreading being the one to slip up each turn cycle. Urtai Wizard Adept allows us to threaten all of our opponent's spells, especially when we have our infinite combo on board and need to protect it. With all this tap utility, we need some ways to repeat the abilities. Kiora's Follower will tap to untap another target permanent, and she only costs a blue and a green. Vizier of Tumbling Sands has the same ability for 2 and a blue. Fate Stitcher will allow us to tap or untap another target permanent. Apheto Alchemist and Sacred of Skybreak go infinite with Illusionist Bracers, tapping to untap target creature. And the Alchemist can even untap artifacts. Magerite Stone lets us pay 1 and tap it to untap a creature with a tap ability. 1000-Year Elixir lets us use tap abilities, ignoring Summoning Sickness, and in addition can untap something each turn. Quest for Renewal builds quest counters quickly before it begins untapping our creatures at each other untap step. Intruder Alarm goes infinite with a lot of scenarios, hopefully launching us into a victory in a single go. Awakening is a universal effect that untaps all creatures and all lands during each untap step. Mercfiend Liege gives us a buff to blue and or green creatures, and also untaps those creatures during each other upkeep. Seedborn Muse will untap all our permanents during each other player's untap step. That just about wraps up my grimoire. Now for a bit of staples, and this rickety tome will begin its epilogue. Nature's Claim helps us to deal with that key artifact or enchantment that could be the end of us. Leyline of Anticipation keeps everyone on their toes by allowing us to cast anything at flash speed. Anger sits in the grave to continue to give all of our creatures haste. Muddle the Mixture could counter an instant or sorcery spell, or it could fetch us any card with CMC equal to 2. Reap and Regrowth each grab things from the graveyard, but Reap requires our opponents to control black permanents. However, the more they control, the more that these two cards can begin to combo and create a recursion loop, leaving us ever saturated with spells. Powerful casters need more mana fonts to draw from. Gaia's Cradle isn't necessary, but it sure does help us ramp in this creature-heavy deck. We will play a full suite of bounce lands since they tap for double, with Izzet Boilerworks, Simic Growth Chamber, and Garul Turf. We will also run color-fixing lands, with Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Ketria Triome, Stomping Ground, Hinterland Harbor, Sulphur Falls, Spire Garden, and Yavimaya Coast. And surely, last but not least, we will also run 9 forests, 8 islands, and 5 mountains.
If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button and also share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like these or hear me ramble about how to navigate this Magic multiverse, go ahead and click that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest from me, Doyle Prime, and the happenings throughout Magic the Gathering. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you all next video.